Ladies and gentlemen, there is one resource more powerful than money, more personal than time, and more delicate than gold: your emotions. Your feelings are not random outbursts. They are the echoes of your heart, the currency of your inner world. And just like any valuable asset, you must learn to protect it, preserve it, and place it only where it is truly appreciated. Let me tell you something that most people learn too late. Never waste your feelings on people who do not value your emotions. See, your emotional energy is not infinite. Every time you invest your compassion, your love, your time, your concern, you're spending from a limited emotional account. And when you invest in people who don't care, don't respond, or don't reciprocate, you are pouring water into a cup with no bottom. Stop doing emotional charity work for people who don't want to grow. Because here's the truth. When someone doesn't value your emotions, they are telling you they don't value your soul. You don't need to fight to be heard. You don't need to beg to be seen. If they wanted to understand you, they would. If they cared about how you feel, they'd make the effort. Let's talk about this from an educational lens. When a student keeps giving the wrong answers, the teacher redirects them. But when the student refuses to learn, the class moves on. In life, you are both the teacher and the student. Choose your classroom wisely. You must train your heart not to respond where it is not respected. Let me repeat that. Train your heart not to respond where it is not respected. Not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Access to your emotions should be earned, not assumed. We live in a world where silence often speaks louder than apologies, where absence says more than fake affection. And when people consistently ignore your emotional needs, they are making a choice. And you, my friend, must make yours to protect your peace over their presence. Listen, healing begins when you stop reopening the door for people who walk in with dirty shoes. You are not cold for walking away. You are not heartless for choosing distance. You are wise, maturing, and stepping into emotional intelligence. Remember this. The right people will never make you feel wrong for feeling. The right people honor your emotions, even when they don't fully understand them. They may not always get it right, but they try. And that effort is everything. So from this day forward, respect yourself enough to say, if you can't respect my feelings, you can't have my presence. Your peace is your power. Your emotions are your essence. And your heart, well, that's your most precious possession. Emotional energy is one of the most underestimated resources in human life. People often talk about time management, financial stewardship, and even physical health. But rarely do we talk about how to manage our emotions, our feelings, our inner responses, the fuel that drives our relationships and our daily interactions. And yet, emotional energy, once depleted, can take longer to replenish than any bank account or calendar slot. Let me tell you something that's both profound and practical. Your emotions are an investment. And like any investment, where you choose to place them will determine your growth or your drain. You see, we don't have unlimited emotional bandwidth. Every day you wake up with a certain amount of emotional capacity. Your ability to feel, to give, to empathize, to care, to listen, to love. That energy gets spent in conversations, in reactions, in the people you think about, the texts you respond to, the disappointments you process, and the love you try to express. And if you're not intentional about where it goes, you'll find yourself emotionally bankrupt, wondering why you feel tired even when you've done nothing physical. Now here's where the problem lies. Many people give their emotional energy away to the wrong people. People who don't appreciate it. People who don't reciprocate it. People who don't even understand its value. And they do it in the name of love, loyalty, kindness, or even fear of being alone. But understand this, no matter how pure your heart is, if you keep pouring into someone who never pours back, you're not loving. You're losing. You're losing your own balance. You're losing your peace. You're losing yourself. Let's break it down. When you constantly check in on someone who never checks on you, you're spending energy. When you overthink someone's words or actions, trying to figure out if they care, you're spending energy. When you argue to be heard or beg to be understood, you're spending energy. And when you cry over someone who has no emotional accountability toward you, you're not just expressing sadness, you're draining yourself. It's like watering a plant that's made of plastic. It looks real, but it will never grow. No matter how much water you give it, it will never flourish. And you, the caretaker, become tired, confused, and eventually resentful because you expected life where there was no capacity for growth. That's what it's like when you continue to invest your emotions in people who are emotionally unavailable, careless, or simply unwilling to grow with you. And here's where emotional maturity steps in. Emotional maturity is the ability to recognize what deserves your energy and what does not. It is knowing when to give and when to guard. It is understanding that protecting your emotional space is not selfish. It's essential. Because the truth is, you are responsible for your emotional balance. Not the people around you. You. And if you allow people to keep withdrawing from your emotional bank without ever making deposits, you are enabling your own exhaustion. Eventually, you'll find yourself frustrated, not just with them, but with yourself. Because deep down, you knew better. You saw the signs. You felt the weight. But you kept giving in the hope that they would finally recognize your worth. Let me offer you a principle that will change how you live and love. Emotion must be mutual. Not identical, but mutual. You deserve people who feel you, who hear you, who consider how their actions affect you. People who don't just take your love, but reflect it. People who see your emotional vulnerability not as weakness, but as a sign of trust and strength. And those kinds of people do exist, but you will never find them while you're emotionally entangled with those who don't value what you bring. You'll never recognize real care when you're constantly focused on chasing after crumbs of affection. You must clear the space. You must release what drains you to receive what fulfills you. This means setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, choosing silence over begging, walking away not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that your peace matters more than being liked or being chosen or being enough for someone who never saw your worth in the first place. Sometimes the most powerful emotional decision you can make is to withdraw your energy, not as revenge, not out of spite, but as a declaration of self-respect. You are not a bottomless well. You are not an emotional landfill. You are not a fixer for people who break you while expecting you to heal them. You are a human being with emotional needs, and those needs deserve to be met with empathy, not excuses, with consistency, not confusion. Every time you choose to stop explaining your value to someone who doesn't see it, you reclaim your emotional energy. Every time you stop overthinking in one-sided relationships, you restore part of yourself. Every time you shift from chasing to choosing peace, choosing clarity, choosing healing, you are telling yourself that you matter. And the more you practice emotional discipline, the stronger you become. Not colder, not bitter, stronger, wiser, more discerning. Because strength is not about how much you can carry. It's about knowing what not to carry anymore. So I say this to you with deep respect. Stop giving your heart to people who play with it. Stop overextending yourself for people who wouldn't stretch for you. Start being selective with your energy, your words, your care, your presence. You owe no one unlimited access to your emotions. Save your heart for those who hold it with both hands. Save your energy for people who energize you. And always remember, emotional energy is limited. Spend it wisely. In life, one of the most telling signs of love, respect, and genuine connection is emotional awareness. The ability of another person to recognize, respond to, and care about how you feel. You see, we often get caught up in words. We cling to compliments, promises, and flattery. But in the end, it's not what someone says that reveals their heart. It's what they notice. It's how they respond when you're quiet, when you're hurting, or when your energy changes. That is the true test of whether someone genuinely cares. We all want to be understood. That desire isn't weak. It's deeply human. To want someone who says, I see that something's off, or you don't seem yourself today. What's going on? That's not needy. That's connection. But in a world where many have become emotionally disconnected or distracted, finding people who are emotionally attentive can feel rare. That's why when you find them, you treasure them. Because the people who truly care won't require you to shout, break down, or repeat yourself 1,000 times to be heard. They pay attention to the subtle things. Your tone, your silence, your eyes, your energy. And they don't ignore it, they lean in. Here's the truth. Real care is observant. It doesn't always come in big romantic gestures or grand expressions. Sometimes it shows up quietly. They check in. They send a text when they feel something is off. They ask how your day was and listen beyond the surface. They remember what you said 2 weeks ago because they were actually present when you spoke. These are the signs of someone who values not just your presence, but your emotional world. Now let's step back and understand this from a broader perspective. Emotional needs are not flaws or signs of weakness. They are the indicators of your inner state, your need to be respected, heard, seen, validated, and loved. And just as your physical needs must be met for your body to function, your emotional needs must be met for your soul to thrive. The right people, the ones who truly care, will not dismiss these needs as too much, too sensitive, or dramatic. They will lean in with compassion and curiosity. This is important. You should never feel guilty for needing emotional connection. The people who shame you for expressing feelings are often those who don't know how to hold space for their own. And so rather than taking responsibility for their emotional immaturity, they make you feel like a burden. But caring people, they won't run from your feelings. They won't weaponize your vulnerability. At least they'll honor it. They'll hold it with care because they understand that being allowed into someone's emotional space is a privilege, not a problem. You can always tell who truly cares by how they show up when you don't have the words. The ones who care will send that message when you've gone silent for too long. They'll pick up on your energy even when you say, I'm fine. They won't pressure you, but they'll remind you they're there. They won't disappear when things get heavy. They'll stand with you in it. And when someone does not respond to your emotional needs over and over again, it's not just forgetfulness, it's neglect. Emotional neglect is one of the most silent and painful forms of rejection. It's the feeling of being invisible while standing right in front of someone. It's the ache of speaking from your heart only to be met with silence, excuses, or distraction. And over time, it begins to erode your self-worth. You begin to question if your feelings even matter. But hear this clearly, they do. Your emotions are not too much. They are meaningful. And the right people will never make you feel guilty for expressing them. The people who care will create emotional safety. That doesn't mean they'll be perfect. They might miss things from time to time. But they'll apologize. They'll ask how they can do better. They'll make the effort to learn your emotional language, not force you to speak theirs. They'll value what matters to you, even if it's unfamiliar to them. That's what real care looks like. It adjusts, adapts, and grows. Now let's flip the lens. How do you recognize these people when they come into your life? Pay attention to their consistency. Do they show up when it's inconvenient? Do they listen without trying to fix you or compete with your pain? Do they make space for your emotional truths, even if they're uncomfortable? Those are the markers of a safe person. And just as important, become that kind of person too. If you want emotionally intelligent people in your life, be emotionally intelligent yourself. Learn to listen deeply. Learn to care without controlling. Learn to validate someone's emotions without minimizing them. When you do that, you don't just attract healthy relationships, you build them. So remember this, you are not asking for too much when you ask someone to care. You are simply asking for something real. And if someone cannot meet you emotionally, that's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their capacity. Don't lower your standards to keep someone emotionally comfortable. Don't silence yourself to avoid rocking the boat. Speak your needs clearly and watch who rises to meet them. Because the ones who care, truly care, will never let you carry emotional weight alone. They'll see you, they'll hear you, and they'll make sure you never have to guess whether you matter. You'll feel it, not just in their words, but in their effort, their presence, and their heart. Your emotions are not random impulses. They are signals. They are internal messages that reflect how you experience the world, how others affect you, and what matters most to you. Joy, sadness, anger, love, fear. These feelings carry weight, meaning, and energy. They are a reflection of your soul, your history, your heart. When you share your emotions with someone, you are not simply speaking. You are offering something sacred. You are opening the door to your inner world and saying, here is what I feel. Here is what's real for me. That is not a casual gesture. That is trust. And yet, so many people give their emotions away too easily, not because they are weak, but because they have good hearts. They believe in others. They want to connect. But the truth is, not everyone is capable of handling your emotions with the care they deserve. Some will take your vulnerability and turn it into a weapon. Others will dismiss it. Some will pretend to listen only to later use what you shared to manipulate or control you. And some will simply be indifferent, not because you're not important, but because they're too self-absorbed to care. This is why you must be wise with your emotions. It's not about becoming cold or closed off. It's about being intentional. Emotional maturity requires that you learn the difference between people who are safe and people who are careless. A careless person might smile in your face but roll their eyes at your tears. A careless person might nod along but ignore everything you said. A careless person might pretend to care, but deep down they're only interested in themselves. And if you continue handing over your emotions to people like that, you will walk through life exhausted, confused, and deeply unfulfilled. Think of your emotions like seeds. If you plant them in dry, hardened soil, they won't grow. But if you plant them in rich, nourishing soil, something beautiful can bloom. You are the gardener of your soul. You decide where your emotional energy goes. Don't waste your tears on someone who mocks them. Don't share your dreams with someone who laughs at them. Don't open up your wounds to someone who has no intention of helping you heal. That is not strength. That is self-sabotage disguised as loyalty. Emotional responsibility is a two-way street. You are responsible for what you feel, yes. But others are responsible for how they treat you when you show them what you feel. If you keep giving your best emotional energy to people who keep giving you their worst behavior, you will slowly deplete your self-worth. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. When someone dismisses your sadness and you let it go. When someone ignores your excitement and you pretend not to care. When someone betrays your trust and you stay silent. Over time, these patterns add up. They teach your nervous system that your emotions are not safe, not valid, not worthy of respect, but they are. You understand the power you hold. Your emotions are part of your divine design. They guide you. They reveal truth. They connect you with others. But only if they are shared with people who recognize their value. Imagine trying to explain your heartache to someone who laughs at your pain. Imagine telling someone you're anxious, only for them to say you're overreacting. Those are the people you must learn to let go of. Because no matter how much love you give, no matter how much patience you show, you cannot force someone to care. You cannot make someone respect your heart if they've already proven they don't. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you reinforce, and by what you tolerate. So if someone constantly tramples on your feelings and you continue showing up for them with the same emotional energy, you are not only enabling their behavior, you are teaching yourself that their validation is more important than your peace. And that is never the truth. The truth is, you deserve to be emotionally seen. You deserve to be surrounded by people who honor your feelings, even when they don't fully understand them. You deserve to have someone say, I may not get what you're going through, but I'm here. I want to understand. I want to support you. Those words don't come from careless people. They come from those who have done the work, those who value human connection, those who know that emotional presence is one of the deepest forms of love. So here's the hard lesson. Protect your emotions the way you would protect your physical body. You wouldn't hand your keys to a reckless driver. Don't hand your heart to an emotionally reckless person. Be discerning, be aware. When someone repeatedly ignores or invalidates your emotions, believe them. Believe their actions. Stop rewriting their behavior to fit your hopes. Some people are not emotionally mature enough to meet you where you are. And that's okay. Let them go. You're not being cruel. You're being wise. And wisdom means choosing peace over chaos, choosing clarity over confusion, and choosing yourself over relationships that drain you. When you start valuing your emotions, you'll start attracting people who do the same. You'll start experiencing a different kind of connection, one rooted in trust, in depth, in mutual care. The most important emotional relationship you will ever have is with yourself. If you learn to respect your own feelings, you will no longer crave that validation from people who don't. And once you stop giving away your emotional energy to those who treat it carelessly, you'll begin to feel a kind of freedom and inner strength that no one can take away. Your emotions are a gift. Guard them. Share them wisely. And only with those who are worthy. When it comes to relationships, whether personal, professional, or emotional, the words are easy. People can say anything. They can promise loyalty, claim affection, speak about support, and vow to always be there for you. But words without consistent behavior to back them up are simply noise. They may feel comforting in the moment, but over time they reveal their emptiness. Real value is not spoken. It is shown. It's not about grand declarations, but about steady, reliable, and intentional actions. The most trustworthy people in your life are not necessarily the ones who say the most. They're the ones who quietly show up time and time again. They are the ones who notice when your energy is off. They don't wait for you to ask for help. They offer it. They don't disappear when life gets messy. They lean in. They don't use your vulnerability as a weapon. They protect it like something sacred. And the reason they do this is simple. They value you. And when someone truly values you, you never have to wonder how they feel about you, because their behavior removes the doubt. We live in a world where people have become skilled at appearances. Social media, polite conversation, and surface-level friendships can all disguise the absence of genuine care. But behavior is the one thing that can't lie forever. A person's patterns will always tell you more than their words. If someone says you matter but constantly puts you last, believe the pattern. If they say they support you but disappear in your hardest moments, believe the pattern. If they say they care but consistently neglect your emotional needs, believe the pattern. Emotional maturity requires us to grow beyond the need for empty words. It demands that we pay attention to consistency, not intensity. Someone can love bomb you with affection for a few days or weeks, but if they can't sustain respect, attentiveness, and kindness over time, that initial warmth means very little. Anyone can show up when it's easy. when they're in the mood, when it benefits them, or when everything is going well. But the ones who value you will still be there when you're difficult to understand, when you're not your best self, when you're in pain, when you have nothing to offer but your presence. We often confuse words with commitment. We hold on to promises, hoping they will eventually match reality. But hope without observation becomes delusion. You must be willing to observe the people around you, not in judgment, but in clarity. Notice who checks in on you without being asked. Notice who remembers what matters to you. Notice who respects your time, your space, your boundaries. These aren't dramatic acts of love. They're quiet proofs of care. And that is where true value lives, in the details, in the follow-through, in the unseen moments that say, I see you and I value your presence in my life. One of the greatest signs of emotional intelligence is learning to let go of people who say the right things but never follow through. You don't have to hate them, you don't have to confront them. You simply observe the mismatch between their words and actions, and you move differently. You stop chasing validation. You stop lowering your standards. You stop making excuses for behavior that clearly communicates disinterest or disrespect. This isn't bitterness. It's wisdom. It's understanding that your time and emotional energy are not infinite resources, and they should only be given to people who consistently show that they appreciate them. And it's not about expecting perfection. No one gets it right all the time. But consistency isn't about being flawless. It's about showing up again and again, even after making mistakes. People who value you will apologize when they mess up. They will seek to understand how to be better for you. They won't gaslight you into thinking your feelings are too much. They won't play games with your mind or emotions. Instead, they will make you feel safe, not because they're perfect, but because they're present. You teach people how to treat you, not just by what you say, but by what you accept. If someone's actions repeatedly fail to match their words, and you continue to accept those words at face value, you become complicit in your own emotional confusion. But when you begin to value your peace more than their promises, everything changes. You create space for real connection. You stop settling for temporary attention. You start recognizing that consistency is love, reliability is respect, and presence is proof. If someone tells you they love you, but they constantly make you feel like a burden, they don't value you. If someone claims to care about your health belief, but constantly oversteps your boundaries, they don't value you. And it's okay to outgrow these dynamics. It's okay to walk away from people who don't know how to appreciate what you bring to the table. Your growth will always require you to release relationships that can't grow with you. Eventually, you realize that peace is not found in convincing people to care. It's found in surrounding yourself with people who don't need to be convinced, they just show up. And they do it not for applause, not for validation, but because it's who they are. They value connection. They value honesty. They value you. So pay attention not to what people say in moments of comfort, but to what they do when you're vulnerable, when you're hurting, when you have nothing to offer but your truth. That means that they're unhealthy. That is where their heart is revealed. And if their actions reflect care, commitment, and consistency, hold on to them. That's rare. But if their actions reveal disinterest, distance, or manipulation, let them go. Your emotional health is too valuable to invest in people who don't treat it that way. Love is a verb. Loyalty is a choice. Respect is a pattern. And behavior is always the loudest form of communication. Choose people who speak love fluently through their actions. Choose people who value you, not just with words, but with consistency. Letting go is one of the hardest emotional decisions a person can make, especially when your heart still holds space for someone. But there comes a time in every individual's life where they must make a choice not based on how they feel in the moment, but on what they deserve in the long term. You can love someone deeply, care about them unconditionally, and still realize that the relationship no longer serves your peace, your growth, or your emotional well-being. And that realization does not make you cold-hearted, it makes you wise. Emotional investment is not a trivial thing. When you open your heart to someone, you give them access to the most intimate part of you, your thoughts, your dreams, your fears, your past. You invite them into your inner world and trust that they will handle it with care. But when that trust is met with disregard, when your emotions are constantly overlooked or invalidated, when your needs are minimized and your presence is taken for granted, staying becomes an act of self-abandonment. The truth is, holding on to someone who doesn't value your emotional presence doesn't make you loyal, it makes you unavailable to yourself. We often mistake endurance for love. We believe that if we just stay a little longer, tolerate a little more, things will change. Maybe they'll see our worth, maybe they'll start to treat us better. But love should never be proven through how much pain you can tolerate. That is not strength, that is emotional self-neglect. Love is meant to feel safe, nurturing, and reciprocal. When it becomes a constant struggle to be seen, heard, or respected, it's time to step back and ask yourself, am I giving my best to someone who's giving me their bare minimum? Growth often demands that you release people, not because you stop caring, but because they stop showing up. You can't keep sacrificing your peace trying to fill the emotional gaps that someone else refuses to acknowledge. And while your heart may still ache for them, your mind must take the lead. Emotional maturity is understanding that missing someone is not a reason to stay. You can miss their presence and still acknowledge that their absence brings you more peace. You can remember the good times and still choose to protect yourself from the repeated pain. People reveal themselves through patterns. You may get caught up in the memory of how things used to be, the way they laughed with you, the promises they made, the connection you once felt. But don't fall in love with potential. Don't build your emotional foundation on how things were at their best, while ignoring how often you feel neglected at their worst. The strongest form of self-respect is refusing to make excuses for consistent mistreatment. Letting go does not always come with closure. Some people will never apologize for how they hurt you. Some will never acknowledge the damage they've done, and waiting for that validation becomes a form of emotional imprisonment. You don't need someone else's remorse to begin healing. You don't need their permission to move on. Closure isn't always given. Sometimes it's created when you finally decide to stop reopening the door to someone who never knew how to walk in and stay. You are not difficult for having emotional needs. You are not needy for wanting to feel appreciated. You are not too sensitive for expecting consistency, honesty, and respect. These are basic emotional requirements in any healthy relationship. And the moment you begin to question whether you're asking for too much is the moment you must evaluate whether you've been accepting too little. Letting go is not about anger or revenge. It's not about proving a point or making someone regret losing you. It's about reclaiming your emotional power. It's about saying, I may still love you, but I love myself more. It's about understanding that your peace is too precious to be sacrificed for someone who doesn't understand how to hold your heart with care. When you walk away, you are not giving up. You are honoring yourself. You are refusing to beg for affection. You are stepping out of emotional scarcity and stepping into the abundance of self-worth. This decision will not always feel good immediately. Healing rarely does. You might cry, you might feel lonely, you might question yourself 1,000 times. But eventually that pain will begin to subside. You will breathe easier. Your thoughts will be clearer. You will sleep better at night without replaying the same conversations, wondering where it all went wrong. You'll no longer feel like you have to shrink yourself to be tolerated. You'll no longer feel anxious waiting for a message that may never come. Instead, you'll begin to feel what it's like to be free. Free from emotional games, from confusion, from inconsistency. The right people will never make you question your worth. They will show up, not just when it's convenient, but because they care. They won't disappear during your storm and return in your sunshine. They won't use silence to punish you or manipulation to control you. Instead, they'll speak with honesty, love with clarity, and behave with integrity. And the only way to create space for these kinds of people in your life is to let go of those who don't. You may not have control over how others treat you, but you have complete control over how long you allow it. You deserve peace. You deserve consistency. You deserve to feel emotionally safe. So if someone's presence in your life keeps costing you those things, it's time to pay attention, because love should not be war, and your heart is not a battlefield. Letting go is a powerful declaration. It says, I choose me. Not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. It says, I trust that my healing matters more than holding on to something broken. It says, I no longer confuse love with pain, and I'm ready for something healthier, even if it means walking alone for a while. That journey begins the moment you stop waiting for someone to change and start choosing to heal. And that choice, as difficult as it may be, is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional freedom. When you begin to understand your emotional energy as a powerful, limited resource, you also begin to see the importance of who you allow into your emotional space. Every time you open your heart to someone, you're not just sharing words or moments. You're giving a piece of your inner world, your vulnerability, your trust, your time. That investment has value, and just like with any valuable asset, if someone consistently misuses it, disregards it, or treats it as disposable, then it's not only wise but necessary to protect what's left. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your emotions. It might sound harsh at first, but there's a difference between being emotionally open and being emotionally unguarded. You can have a kind heart without giving it away freely to people who have shown no intention of holding it with care. Emotional maturity is learning that love without boundaries turns into self-destruction. It's learning that empathy doesn't mean excusing toxic behavior, and compassion doesn't mean abandoning yourself to keep someone else comfortable. We often confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. We believe that the longer we stay, the more we prove our love, but time doesn't validate a relationship if it's filled with emotional neglect. A long-lasting connection that drains your spirit is not love. It's a trap disguised as commitment. You're not supposed to lose yourself in the process of loving someone else. If you're constantly shrinking, silencing, or doubting yourself just to keep the peace, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a battle for your own emotional survival. And many times it's not even about dramatic betrayal. Sometimes it's the subtle things that hurt the most. The way your messages go unanswered. The way your feelings are brushed off like they're too much. The way you're made to feel guilty for expressing needs. The silence when you need reassurance. The inconsistency that leaves you confused. The hot and cold behavior that keeps you hoping today will be different. But love isn't supposed to be a guessing game. When someone truly values your emotions, they show it in how they show up. Not just in their words, but in their consistent, conscious actions. You deserve emotional clarity. You deserve stability. You deserve someone who doesn't just make space for your feelings, but respects them, listens to them, and responds to them with care. And until you believe that for yourself, you'll keep settling for less than you need. You'll keep giving more than is returned. You'll keep watering relationships that leave you dry. But there will come a moment, maybe after one too many disappointments, or maybe in a quiet night of reflection, when you realize that the love you're seeking from someone else is the love you've been withholding from yourself. That moment is powerful. It's painful, yes, but it's also liberating. Because from that point on, you're no longer tied to the fantasy of who someone could be. You're not clinging to their potential or hoping they'll finally understand how to love you right. Instead, you start standing in truth. And the truth is, people who truly care don't make you feel invisible. They don't weaponize your feelings. They don't twist your emotions into something inconvenient. They don't disappear when it matters most. Letting go of someone who doesn't value your emotions doesn't mean you didn't love them enough. It means you finally started loving yourself more. It means you chose to stop begging for emotional crumbs. It means you decided that peace is better than chaos, that healing is more important than history, and that you are worthy of a relationship that feeds your soul, not one that starves it. That doesn't mean the journey will be easy. Walking away from emotional attachment, especially when your heart is still involved, is one of the most difficult steps you'll ever take. You'll question yourself. You'll miss them. You'll replay conversations and wonder what you could have done differently. But with time, that ache will soften. Your clarity will grow stronger, and you'll begin to see the distance as a form of protection, not punishment. Because healing isn't just about forgetting what happened, it's about learning from it. It's about developing the strength to set new boundaries. It's about creating a space within yourself that is so grounded in self-worth, you no longer tolerate emotional chaos as a normal part of love. You start to recognize the signs early. You listen to your intuition more. You become more selective, not out of fear, but out of respect for your peace. Eventually, you'll meet people who match your energy, people who speak your emotional language, people who don't make you feel like a burden for having feelings. And when that happens, you'll thank yourself for walking away from what wasn't right. Because had you stayed in that one-sided emotional dynamic, you would have never had the room to receive what was truly meant for you. You're not here to chase love. You're not here to fix people who don't want to change. You're not here to convince someone to care. You're here to grow, to love freely, and to be loved deeply in return. And that starts with how you treat yourself. That starts with not wasting your emotional energy on people who can't even meet you halfway. So guard your emotions, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Share your heart, but do so with discernment. Let your kindness flow, but let it have boundaries. Because the right people will never make you feel like your emotions are too much. They'll make you feel like your emotions matter. And that kind of emotional safety isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. And you are worth every bit of it. The journey of self-discovery and emotional growth often begins with the painful realization that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. And not everyone you invest your energy in deserves it. In the pursuit of emotional well-being, one of the most crucial lessons you'll learn is that your feelings should never be wasted on people who don't value or appreciate them. This doesn't mean that you should be selective with your emotions in a way that closes you off from meaningful relationships, but rather that you must recognize when it's time to stop pouring your energy into people who consistently take your emotional investment for granted. Too often we find ourselves in situations where we love deeply, give our best, and show our vulnerability, only to find that the people we care about don't reciprocate that energy. They might disregard your emotions, fail to acknowledge your needs, or take advantage of your kindness. These behaviors may not always come from malice, but often stem from selfishness or a lack of emotional awareness. While it's natural to want to help, support, and love those we care about, it's essential to recognize when that emotional investment is not being respected or valued in return. Emotions are not limitless. Every time you give someone your emotional energy, you are giving them a part of yourself. When that energy is met with indifference, disrespect, or neglect, it drains you. And over time, this drain can manifest as emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and a growing sense of bitterness or resentment. You may begin to feel as if you are giving everything and receiving nothing in return. The more you invest in these relationships, the more you lose yourself. Your self-worth gets tied to how others perceive you, and your happiness becomes dependent on how others treat you. This cycle is unsustainable and unhealthy. The key to emotional well-being lies in learning to recognize when your feelings are being wasted and having the courage to withdraw from situations or relationships that continually drain you without offering anything of value in return. It takes strength to acknowledge that you deserve better. You deserve people who appreciate your presence and treat your emotions with the same care and respect that you offer them. It's crucial to understand that letting go of relationships that no longer serve your emotional well-being is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation. When you continue to pour your energy into people who disregard your feelings, you are not only hurting yourself, but you are also preventing yourself from forming meaningful connections with others who will value and reciprocate your emotional investment. When you hold on to relationships that are emotionally draining, you become too exhausted and depleted to give your best to those who genuinely appreciate you. You are worthy of love, respect, and understanding. Your emotions matter, and they should be treated with the same care and importance that you give to others. When you let go of people who don't value your emotions, you make space for those who will. This space is necessary for your personal growth and happiness. Surrounding yourself with people who respect you and appreciate your emotional depth allows you to flourish as an individual and as a partner, friend, or family member. Recognizing when your feelings are being wasted can be difficult, especially when you are emotionally attached to someone. The attachment may make you hesitant to let go, even when you know deep down that it is the right thing to do. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of what the relationship could be or how it used to be. You might find yourself clinging to the hope that things will change, that the person will eventually recognize your worth and start treating you the way you deserve to be treated. But the truth is, people rarely change unless they want to. And even when they do, it often takes a long time and a lot of effort, something you might not have the luxury to wait for. Letting go doesn't mean that you stop caring about the person. It doesn't mean that you erase them from your heart or forget the good moments you shared. It simply means that you are choosing to protect yourself from the constant emotional roller coaster that comes from investing in someone who does not reciprocate your feelings. It means recognizing that your emotional health is more important than clinging to a relationship that drains you. It's not about abandoning the person. It's about acknowledging that the relationship in its current state is not healthy for either of you. One of the hardest things about letting go is the fear of being alone, or the fear of losing someone you once thought was important in your life. It's easy to convince yourself that you need them, that you can't live without them, or that you'll never find someone else who understands you in the same way. But the reality is, the longer you stay in a relationship that drains you, the more you lose touch with who you truly are. You start to feel disconnected from yourself, your values, and your emotional needs. When you let go of the people who don't value your emotions, you free yourself to reconnect with yourself. You rediscover what it feels like to be emotionally whole, to not constantly seek validation or approval from others, but to validate and approve of yourself first. You begin to trust yourself more, to recognize your own worth, and to set boundaries that protect your emotional energy. You learn that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's treatment of you, but on how you treat yourself. Letting go of toxic relationships can also serve as an opportunity for growth. It forces you to confront your own needs, desires, and emotional limits. It encourages you to reflect on why you allowed the relationship to continue for so long, despite the signs that your feelings were being neglected. It challenges you to evolve, to learn from the experience, and to grow stronger. As growth makes it easier to identify and form healthier relationships in the future where your emotional needs are met and your feelings are respected. Ultimately, the process of letting go is an act of self-love. It's about recognizing that you deserve to be treated with kindness, empathy, and respect. It's about understanding that your emotions are valuable and that no one has the right to dismiss them. By choosing to let go of those who don't value your emotions, you create space for healthier, more fulfilling relationships that will nurture your emotional well-being. It's a difficult decision, but it's one of the most important steps you can take to protect yourself and create a life filled with love, respect, and emotional fulfillment. There is an inherent beauty in being open and emotionally available to others. But there is also a certain responsibility we must carry when we give people access to our hearts. Emotions are powerful. They drive us, they shape our experiences, and they play a significant role in the way we interact with the world around us. The emotional energy we possess is not endless, and when we share that energy with others, it's important to remember that not everyone deserves that gift. One of the most valuable lessons you'll ever learn is that you should never waste your feelings on people who don't value them. This doesn't mean you should stop being kind or compassionate, but it means that you need to recognize when someone is not reciprocating that same level of respect for your emotions. And it is in those moments that you need to reassess where you are investing your energy. We often find ourselves in relationships, whether romantic, familial, or even friendships, where we feel like we are constantly giving. We give our love, our time, our attention, and our emotional support. But over time, we may begin to notice that these efforts are not being acknowledged, appreciated, or returned in kind. The person we care about may dismiss our feelings, take them for granted, or perhaps even use our vulnerability against us. When this happens, it can create an emotional imbalance in the relationship, leaving us feeling drained, unimportant, and even invisible. The more we pour into someone who doesn't recognize our emotional needs, the more we risk losing touch with ourselves. See, it's easy to convince ourselves that we need to give more in these situations. We may feel guilty for setting boundaries, believing that if we just continue to be patient, kind, and understanding, the other person will eventually recognize the value of what we're offering. However, this mindset can lead to a cycle of emotional neglect. By continuing to give to someone who doesn't value our feelings, we begin to lose sight of our own worth. We may start to doubt ourselves, question our own emotions, or believe that we are somehow responsible for the other person's lack of emotional engagement. But the truth is, the responsibility does not lie with you. It lies with the person who is not respecting the emotional investment you are making. You deserve to have your emotions valued, honored, and cared for. When you continuously pour your feelings into someone who dismisses or neglects them, you are not only neglecting yourself, but you are also enabling unhealthy behavior in the relationship. People who value your emotions do not take them for granted. They listen to you, they respond with empathy, and they show genuine interest in your well-being. They do not manipulate your feelings or make you feel like you are too much for them. They meet you halfway, and they acknowledge the emotional energy that you share with them. Letting go of relationships or people who don't value your emotions is not a sign of weakness. It is, in fact, an incredibly powerful act of self-care. It takes courage to recognize when you are being emotionally depleted by someone who doesn't respect you, and it takes strength to walk away from that situation, even when your heart is telling you to stay. The process of letting go is never easy, especially when there is emotional attachment involved. But you must remember that you are not obligated to stay in a relationship where your feelings are being ignored or disrespected. Staying in such a situation only perpetuates the cycle of emotional neglect and drains your energy further. When you choose to stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you are not only protecting yourself from further emotional harm, but also giving yourself the opportunity to heal and grow. It may be painful at first to walk away, but it will ultimately allow you to rediscover your own sense of self-worth. You will begin to recognize that your feelings are not something to be given away lightly or taken for granted. You will realize that you deserve to be treated with the same level of respect, care, and understanding that you give to others. It's also important to understand that when you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you make room for healthier relationships. By choosing to set boundaries and walk away from toxic emotional dynamics, you create space in your life for people who will value you. These are the people who will recognize the beauty of your heart, the depth of your feelings, and the importance of your emotional needs. They will show up for you when you need them, and they will treat your emotions with the care they deserve. Setting boundaries and protecting your emotional well-being also helps you establish a healthier relationship with yourself. By choosing not to waste your feelings on those who don't appreciate them, you begin to reinforce the idea that your emotions matter. You start to see yourself as deserving of love, respect, and emotional care. You begin to understand that you are not responsible for other people's behavior and that you are allowed to prioritize your own emotional needs without guilt. This shift in mindset allows you to show up more fully in your own life without constantly trying to prove your worth to others or seeking validation from people who are not capable of giving it to you. It's also important to remember that valuing your own emotions doesn't mean you should close yourself off from love or connection. It simply means that you need to be discerning about who you allow into your emotional space. You can be open and vulnerable without being reckless with your feelings. You can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. When you learn to value your own emotions, you become more mindful of the relationships you enter into and more aware of the energy you are sharing. You no longer settle for people who treat your feelings as expendable, but instead you seek out relationships that nurture your emotional well-being. Choosing to stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them is an act of self-respect and self-love. It's about reclaiming your emotional power and refusing to give away pieces of yourself to people who don't honor your worth. When you do this, you not only protect your emotional energy, but you also make space for more meaningful, authentic connections with people who will treat your emotions with the care, respect, and attention they deserve. By doing so, you will cultivate a life filled with relationships that nourish your soul and allow you to thrive emotionally. Every day, we make decisions about how to spend our time, our energy, and our emotional resources. As human beings, we naturally desire to form connections with others. We seek relationships that offer love, support, and understanding. Our emotional well-being depends on the quality of the relationships we invest in. And we often share our deepest feelings with others because we want to be heard, understood, and valued. However, a key lesson in life is that not everyone is deserving of your emotional energy, and it is essential to recognize when you are wasting your feelings on people who don't value them. We all have moments when we feel the need to open up to someone, to share our struggles, our hopes, and our dreams. We look for someone who will listen and offer a comforting word or a shoulder to lean on. Emotions are a deep part of our human experience, and it is natural to want to share them with others, especially those we trust. Yet, there are times when we share our emotions with individuals who not only fail to reciprocate, but also fail to acknowledge the depth of what we're offering. In such situations, we must recognize that our emotions are being wasted. This is not to say that we should close ourselves off entirely, but rather that we should be mindful about where and with whom we share our emotional resources. The danger of investing too much in people who don't value your emotions is that it can lead to emotional exhaustion. You begin to pour your heart into someone who doesn't appreciate it, and after a while you find yourself feeling drained, misunderstood, or even unimportant. This happens because emotional energy, like physical energy, is finite. We only have so much to give, and when we direct that energy toward people who are indifferent or dismissive, we end up depleting ourselves. It can leave you feeling like you're constantly giving without receiving, and that imbalance creates an unhealthy dynamic that only harms you in the long run. At first, you might convince yourself that if you give more, if you try harder, the other person will eventually see your worth and recognize the value of your feelings. You might justify your continued emotional investment with the hope that things will change. But in reality, people who don't value your emotions are unlikely to change simply because you keep giving. The truth is that they may not even be aware of how their lack of appreciation is affecting you. Even if they are aware, their behavior may not shift because they aren't capable of understanding the significance of your emotional needs. This pattern is not only draining, but also harmful to your sense of self-worth. When you constantly give to someone who doesn't value what you bring to the table emotionally, you begin to doubt your own importance. You may start to feel like you're too much, too emotional, or that your feelings are unimportant. This self-doubt can erode your confidence and cause you to question your own emotional needs. But the truth is, your emotions are valid and they deserve to be acknowledged and appreciated. No one should ever make you feel like you are asking for too much by simply wanting to be heard or cared for. There's also a danger in continuing to give emotionally to someone who doesn't respect you. Over time, this behavior can lead to resentment. You may feel taken for granted, unappreciated, or even used. When this happens, the relationship becomes imbalanced and unhealthy. You might start to harbor negative feelings, and those feelings of resentment can fester, poisoning the connection you once had. Rather than continuing to invest in a relationship that drains you emotionally, it's important to step back and assess whether it is truly serving you in a positive way. One of the hardest things to do when you realize that you are investing in someone who doesn't value your feelings is to walk away. This is especially difficult when you have strong emotional attachments to that person, whether they are a family member, a romantic partner, or a close friend. It can feel like you are abandoning them, or that you are being selfish by prioritizing your own emotional well-being. However, the reality is that by staying in a relationship that isn't reciprocating your emotional investments, you are only continuing to harm yourself. You are not obligated to stay in a relationship that constantly depletes you, and it is not selfish to choose to protect your own heart. Walking away does not mean that you stop caring about the person. It simply means that you recognize your own value and the need to prioritize your own emotional health. When you stop wasting your feelings on someone who doesn't appreciate them, you create space for healing. You give yourself the opportunity to reconnect with yourself and to reestablish your sense of worth. By setting boundaries and stepping back from relationships that drain you, you free yourself from the cycle of emotional depletion. Moreover, when you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you make room for healthier relationships. You begin to attract individuals who will respect your emotional boundaries and honor your feelings. These people understand the importance of emotional reciprocity, and they will value you for who you are, not just for what you can give them emotionally. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect. And when you learn to protect your emotional well-being, you open the door to relationships that will uplift you rather than drain you. This process of recognizing when your feelings are being wasted and choosing to stop giving them to people who don't value them is an act of self-love and self-respect. It is a way of taking ownership of your emotional energy and making sure that it is directed toward those who truly deserve it. When you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you reclaim your emotional power. You start to recognize that your emotions are not something to be given away lightly, but something to be shared with those who will handle them with care and respect. Ultimately, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. By choosing to protect your emotions and stop investing them in people who do not value them, you are reinforcing your own sense of worth. You are telling yourself that you deserve love, respect, and understanding. You are setting the standard for how you will allow others to treat you. This act of self-care is essential for your emotional health, and it will help you cultivate a life filled with positive, meaningful connections that enrich your heart and soul. By learning to value your own feelings, you invite others to do the same. And when you surround yourself with people who genuinely respect your emotions, you create a life that is filled with love, empathy, and fulfillment.